My first impressions of Settlers of Kalguur League so far is extremely positive. It's so fun and cozy. I think a lot of people's opinions so far have been very good on it. A lot of people are already calling for it to be added core. It might be a bit early for that. We probably need a bit of time to set with it, especially at endgame, and see how it feels as a long-term thing. But I do have to say I very, very much enjoyed my first day with it, and I was kind of a bit giddy because it's so upbeat, it's so positive, it's so building towards the future. We're literally building one of the towns from Path of Exile 2. It's got characters I love returning, and it's got new, pretty nice characters as well. And there's just something so positive about it all, as well as the mechanics of it as well, being very neuron activating kind of dopamine fix of basically passive extra bonus rewards while you're doing other content. While you're blasting, you get that nice little cadence of I'm going to take a break every 40 minutes to an hour or so and go collect my shipment and assign some new workers and make a couple of upgraders. All that work I did in the last hour is now paying off, and I'm getting rewarded for my previous hour's work. And then I'm going to build towards the next thing, and I'm going to look forward to in another hour. There's a very nice cadence to the gameplay there. Also, I have to commend that the encounters were very well balanced for the campaign. Maybe a little too easy, honestly, but certainly not like previous leagues where some things have just been completely ridiculous. If anyone recalls, launch Brutus in Affliction League. It was nearly unkillable when triple empowered. So good times there, and the leveling has been very fun. And I do have to, as an aside, mention that I have been thoroughly enjoying my melee action. It feels like actual buffs, and really enjoying the auto exert and various other little bits and pieces there, and some subtle things too, like the pickup radius extension, just making the game just feel a little bit more comfortable to play. Even used the currency exchange just a little bit, and felt like that was really convenient for doing things like getting jewelers while leveling that I needed. So really, really good times had all around there. There are a couple little things that stood out as not perfect. The tornadoes from the Bismuth encounters seem a bit overtuned, but a lot of the encounters overall were pretty well balanced, aside from just basically that one thing. And if I have any other criticisms so far, I think it's just UI, user experience stuff. I think like the shipping menu is a little bit awkward, and I feel like I want a way to be able to, while I'm doing other content, while I'm mapping, to be open a league screen that's just like a summary of your current like gold, your current resources, and your how long until your next shipment arrives and things like that, just so you can kind of just check in. You know, just press a hotkey, open up a little mini summary report menu, just so you can check in with your town and decide, okay, I might do 1 or 2 maps and then I'll go. Of course, you have the pop-ups when your shipments arrive and things like that, but if you are like, oh, how long until my next shipment? I can't remember. Is it 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Should I do another map? It's a bit annoying to have to go to the NPC to do that instead of being able to just pop it up. So that might be a conscious choice by the devs, but I would like the ability to just pop up a little menu at will, just to get a quick summary, not to be able to do anything with the mechanics, but just to get a little summary. If I have any other complaint, it is that it was a bit too engaging, and I leveled very slowly after a very long day of playing the game. I didn't reach endgame, which I usually try to do at the end of day 1, kind of get started on maps, but I only quite got to Act 9, so even though it's kind of like a passive background thing, there's a lot of tinkering and learning and exciting stuff to kind of engage in, and I just got a bit too comfy in Kingsmarch. One other thing I will mention is that I really do feel like, and I saw this mentioned from a few different people, that idea of Kingsmarch feels like it should be your hideout, or conversely, that this mechanic should be about building up a town in your hideout. I think that would be very fun. I don't know how that would plug into the existing hideouts, but the ability to be able to move your hideout into Kingsmarch, maybe as like an add-on to it or something, would be fun, because I kind of want to spend all my time there. I don't really want to be in my hideout anymore. I want to be in Kingsmarch. And the ability to build that up and make your hideout a bit more mechanical in that way, I don't know, the two things could integrate really well. All right, so opinions and first impressions aside, let's get on to the guide of things I have learned and the mechanical nuances to get you started, the basics of Settlers of Kalguur. So whenever I make an early guide, at the end of day 1, start of day 2 for a new league mechanic, I do want to just remind you that this is all still in testing. We're discovering how this all works. And as such, some things might be inaccurate, or some things might be a bit low confidence, or some things we may have just not figured out yet, for example. So for full kind of transparency, I wanted to show you my actual notes, so you can pause and take a look at all this stuff. This is the stuff that I'm going to be talking about and explaining effectively, and there's various things that are tagged as things that need further investigation. So first things first, what is the point of Settlers of Kalguur Kingsmarch engaging in this whole mechanic? What do you get out of it? And then, as you can see, there's actually a lot of different reward types from this. Usually most leagues have one or two things. This has quite a lot going on. So the first thing is shipments via Tujin. The various resources that you collect over here can be shipped off to various different locations, like so. To these guys here, to these guys here, and there's tons of other ports that you'll be able to unlock. And when the boats return, you'll be given a bunch of currency, gear, etc, etc. I'll explain how this works in detail. This is a shipment that has returned that was pretty high risk, that has unfortunately suffered a consequence, so I'm probably only getting half rewards from this. But this is an example of my kind of like campaign leveling random stuff here. I've gotten various 5 links, some nice currency, certainly people have been getting divines. You get runes, which is for the runesmithing. Overall, it's been moderate to good for campaign leveling, and some people have certainly been lucky and gotten divines and things like that too. The pacing of it has been very nice in that you kind of get a shipment back every 40-ish minutes. So you kind of check in every act or 2 times an act maybe, depending on how fast you go, and get yourself some nice kind of leveling gear. Faustus in town here has the black market, which is a way to dump gold into well-rolled items, but importantly it's deterministic, so you can focus on a specific item category. So let's say you're looking for trying to get high-end armor base boots, you can roll specifically for random armor boots. So I can buy those, and generally speaking, they're quite well rolled. This is actually a massive upgrade compared to my current boots. So it's pretty good. I did have some bad luck with it while leveling the campaign. I got a lot of blues, but a lot of other people were saying that they generally got like very good items from this. Just be careful early on that you don't dump all of your gold into this, because you need a bit of gold to progress your town and upgrade various things. Nonetheless, this will be a very powerful tool for progressing, both in solo self-found, but also in trade too, for getting like crafting bases or getting items that are most of the way there that you can then improve. There's also the runesmithing. The runesmithing table allows you to take the runes that you receive from shipments, like for example the sun runes are the first ones you get, and apply enchantments to weapons. Not including shields, but every other weapon type is available, and you have a mixture of different effects, from adding just straight up damage as an enchantment, so you can see that's got fire damage there, added fire damage, so just all of your weapons do more damage while you're in the campaign and leveling. And then again at endgame. And you can do things like ignite, and there's also, for more runes later on, you'll be able to do things like triggers, so fire burst on hit, for example, or exploding enemies. Later on, you'll get more and more different types of runes for different damage types, different other triggers, even things like spell damage and minion damage and stuff as enchantments as well. Pretty nice to get, you know, a 30% increased minion damage just as a bonus. A lot of leagues have some sort of power creep feature that just makes players stronger in some fun way. This is this for this league. Everyone except like unarmed builds is going to have access to either bonus damage or some cool trigger or extra effect. There is of course also the headlining feature, the currency exchange here from Faustus, and this allows for easy currency trading between players, instantaneous, so good. And this is fueled by gold. Now you only really need to unlock this from a low level town, and then you have access to it, and you can even do it from your hideout by just putting Faustus in your hideout. And gold is obtained through core gameplay, so this is almost not even a part of Settlers of Kalguur, but you will need to just engage with it just very briefly to unlock this, even if you don't want to do the league mechanic. And then at endgame, there's going to be an auto mapping system where you can send NPCs to just literal plebs to go do your bulk maps for you and give you the loot from those maps passively. So that's just passive income again, fueled by gold, and a way to just churn through the maps you don't want to do so you can focus on the better content. I'm really looking forward to exploring that one. I want a whole league centered around that idea. Alright, so now let's talk about workers and wages and the various resources that they can collect for you. You unlock and improve your workers and generally gain access to new features by upgrading the core town improvements here in the tavern. This is the first building that's standing, and this is where you do this stuff. So this will generally give you like increased town population, the maximum workers you can have, allow you to recruit better quality workers, allow those workers to specialize in different things, and give you different higher ranks of workers as well, as unlocking new features for the actual town too. So this is where you do the majority of the big stuff. If you haven't unlocked a new system yet, you want to get the rune crafting right, start here and then go and look for the places where you can build those things. Ralph the recruiter here allows you to recruit workers. And you'll see a couple little details here. So workers have a primary skill, or they can have multiple skills. And then they have a wage. The wage is based on their rank, their highest rank skill. They don't seem to cost more if they have multiple different skills. I think it's just based on their highest rank. But then within that, workers that are the same rank can actually have different wages. I'm going to assume some of them are like children that you're employing, so their wages are lower. You know how you can pay children under minimum wage? Maybe it's something like that. So anyway, you might see 2 rank 1 shipping workers, but one will only cost 8 gold per hour and the other will cost 10 gold per hour. Long term, you're probably going to be fishing for workers that have the highest possible rank for the skills that you want and the lowest wage for those. The way wages work, and you can access the town map here, is there's a treasury for the town that you will add your gold to. So you have your gold in your inventory here, but you can also add it to the treasury, and wages will only ever come out of your treasury. This is basically just a spending limit for you so that they don't drain the gold from your inventory if they don't want them to, especially if you log off for the night. The farmers, for example, will just keep working. They'll just keep producing. As you can see, I logged in this morning and I have tons of food because although the miners ran out of things to mine because I didn't go find them new things to mine, the farmers just kept going. So they will keep eating the wages until the treasury is empty. That's only a good thing though, because crops are how you get currency from the shipping, but we'll talk about that later. If you run out of treasury, wages will stop being paid and everyone will just stop working. This includes ships. They literally just stop sailing. I don't know how that works, but don't worry about it. Everything comes to a halt. So keep your wages getting paid, keep your treasury filled up. One thing to note is town upgrades that cost large amounts of gold. Some of them cost like, a fair bit of gold. If you don't have enough in your inventory, it'll automatically pull from your actual treasury as well. And that is convenient, but it does mean that you might accidentally spend a bunch of your treasury without realizing, and then wages will run out. Just be careful of that if you're like logging off for the day. Just make sure the last upgrade you did didn't deplete your treasury completely, and thus, no work will get done overnight. Now, in terms of what you do with workers, you assign them to different jobs. You can assign any worker anywhere, but you want to give people the right jobs for their highest rank skill. And that's because they effectively work more efficiently. They will mine faster, they will produce more food from the farms, they will disenchant faster, and they'll make the shipping safer, for example. So as an example, I have like a level 1 miner here on my farm plot just because I don't need them on mining right now. My mining gets done pretty much right away. So I've just assigned them to farming to produce extra food for now. A word of warning about this is that an off-classing worker, so a miner with a rank 1 mining, counts as basically just like a rank 0 farmer. But you still pay them based on their rank. Now for low ranks, that's fine. So putting low ranks in off-class jobs is just fine because they're basically unskilled workers. But if, for example, you say put a rank 5 shipping expert in farming, you are paying them based on their rank 5 shipping. They're like, I am an expert, I'm a highly skilled worker. I don't care that you've put me in a low skilled job. I am still highly skilled, you have to pay me accordingly. So you'll still pay a very high wage for them. And that can be a big difference. For example, 6 gold per hour for this rank 1 versus 177 gold per hour for this rank 5. So you generally only want to off-class workers early on or for low rank workers. The higher rank ones, you want to keep them just to their jobs or unemploy them. And that's because wages aren't paid to anyone who's not working. So if the miners run out of mining to do, they won't be paid, so they're not going to drain your money. You don't need to remove them from their jobs. Same thing for like smelting. Farmers will keep working because they never run out of work, so they will keep eating wages. So just be aware of that. So if you have a high rank employee that you don't currently need assigned anywhere, maybe you're full, but you just have a level 5 miner that you want to save for later, just unemploy them. Or if you need the extra space, you can fire them. You can fire people by going to the town recruitment here, and if they're not assigned to something, there's a little button on the top right you can click to fire them. Not necessary early on, but maybe later on once you start upgrading to higher and higher tier workers. Long term, your goal is going to be to get high rank workers in the right jobs with the lowest wages possible and figure out just kind of how many miners you need, for example. Like you might not necessarily need a full amount of high rank miners for every single ore. So trying to tailor that to how much you farm, for example, like how quickly you map will affect how much ore you collect for your miners. So that'll determine like how many miners you actually want in place. I think everyone's worker distribution is going to look pretty different in the end based on how they play the game. If you play a bit more passively, don't do as many maps, you're not going to need as many miners, maybe you'll want more farmers and focus on farming and shipping more. If you do a lot of mapping and blast really fast through many maps, then you might want more mining and smelting. If you plan on doing a lot of recombinating, you're probably going to want more disenchanting focus, for example. So everyone's going to look a bit different here. So that note, on to mining. As you clear through zones or maps, you can find one or more encounters that will give you a various ores. So Starting off with Crimson Ores through the low level acts, and you'll start getting Orichalcum, I think like Act 2 or 3, and then as you progress, you'll start seeing more and more. You get Bismuth, I think maybe in Act 6 plus. I'm assuming Verisium starts in maps, as I haven't seen it yet at Act 9. Each time you complete an encounter in a zone or map, it will add a volume of that resource to the ore to mine category here. So this is just a lump sum total that can be mined. The speed at which it's mined is determined by the workers, the quality of them, and how many you have. As you can see, the Orichalcum here is pretty actively ticking over, and it actually just sped up kind of as I was recording here, and that's because the workers in the higher tier ores finished their job. So what did they do? They automatically moved down to the previous jobs. As you can see, you can assign a worker to each ore type, or multiple even if you want. As you see, I've got multiple on Bismuth here, and when they finish mining that resource, they will automatically go down and mine the earlier resources. So I'm mining Orichalcum quite quickly now, because the Bismuth miners and the Petrified Amber miners are all finished with their job. So they've gone down to help them. I'm pretty sure it rolls downwards like that in terms of order of priority. But basically, if you find you've got a lot of ore to mine of one particular type, you might want to put more workers on it, but generally speaking, they will help each other out, so it's not too big a stress where you put each worker. Just make sure you have someone in at least each one. And if you're bankrolling a ton of ore to mine, then you might want to assign some more or high quality workers to it. As you can see, if you mouse over, you'll actually see like an ore per hour mined. So currently it's like 142 per hour from this guy here. That's because he's like a rank 3 miner in kind of like a lower tier resource. The rank 3 miner in the higher tier resource, so same rank, higher resource here, is 115 per hour. So the higher tier ones are a little bit harder to mine, even for the same like rank workers. So they take a little bit slower. And then you can see I've got like a rank 5 and a 1 here. So that's 6 total, and that's 207. So you can kind of see how that rolls up there. Something it won't show you though is it won't show you the extra ore per hour that you'll get for when these workers go down and help out the Orichalcum miners, for example. But safe to assume it's probably several hundred per hour right now as the other workers are helping out. Now onto Smelting over here on the right, where Danig is. Smelting turns ores into these bars here, and the bars are converted from ore to bars, as far as I can tell, at a ratio of 1:1. Based on just watching them actually actively smelt it. Now the very cool thing about that is, generally speaking, bars are worth 5 times as much as ore, so you get 5 times the value for each ore that you get by smelting it into bars. Now very early on when you're progressing your town, you don't necessarily need many smelters or any to begin with, and that's because a lot of the town upgrades will cost ore, but long term you will be converting your ore to bars, and that's because the trade value is multiplied. So you're effectively spending gold and worker time to convert the ore into a much more valuable trade resource. As far as I can tell, the smelters work just the same as the miners. You assign them to each thing that you want to smelt. As far as I can tell, just like the mining, I'm pretty sure if someone has finished smelting Petrified Amber and there's no more to smelt, they'll go down and help the other ones. Farming is up here in the top left. You unlock it next to Sonia, which is pretty cool. You'll get different farming plots, and you can basically click on each farming plot and determine what thing is grown there. And that just gives you your maximum possible kind of output per hour of that resource. So if you're wanting to ship a lot of corn to fulfill different requests, then you'll probably do a couple of corn plots, for example. How workers work for farming is a little different than mining and smelting, and that's because they never run out of work to do. Whereas you have to collect resources to mine, and then the resources actually need to be there to smelt. The workers for food will just keep producing. Apparently this place is pretty fertile. She actually comments on it. Since crops basically turn into currency for the shipping, they're obviously going to be a pretty high priority. So getting pretty high quality workers in there and filling them out as much as possible. And I've been filling them out with low tier workers just early on here. Is basically just going to allow you to convert more gold into currency faster. You will actually need to assign workers to each specific crop type that you want, as they're not going to like run out of work and then go help each other like the miners do. So you'll want to actually play around with your distribution of what you're actually growing. So I've got like 1 wheat, 1 corn, and 2 pumpkins. Earlier on, there's a lot of wheat and corn requests, so you might want to focus on those a little bit more. Upgrades for this seem to give you more worker capacity, more farming plots itself. Looks like we can probably, based on the map, get like maybe 8 plots total. And also just basic farming speed and whatnot too. Just again, keep in mind that the farmers will keep working all night long while you're sleeping, so they will eat all of your wages. Either don't fill up the treasury too much if you don't want them to eat all of your gold, or slow down your farming by not assigning so many workers. I think I'm probably going to let them just go at full pace the entire time though. In terms of getting gold for wages and town upgrades, it's essentially a function of playtime multiplied by farming efficiency, multiplied by the juiciness of your content, like how many rare monsters and monsters in general there are in it. You seem to get gold from basically everything, including things like labyrinth chests, so whatever you do, you're going to earn gold. But just like regular currency farming, more rare monsters and juicier content done faster is going to give you more gold. Still to be investigated are things like how map quantity affects gold, for example, whether running like really juiced up quantity maps matters, or if it's just sheer number of mobs. We'll have to test. I assume quantity affects it just in a similar way to currency. All right, let's talk about the most important mechanic in the early game, and probably long term as it kind of fuels everything else, and that is shipping. So the way shipping works is you assign various crew to, it will be multiple ships, I believe, down the line. And the quality and amount of crew that you assign affects the safety of the shipment. So how likely it is for your shipment to return the full value. As you can see here, there is a risk bar. And as we add more and more resources to a shipment, the risk bar will increase further and further until it basically is like 100% likely that something bad will happen. That can be something like, I've had examples where like the people ate all the food, so any food you put on the shipment didn't make it, so you don't get any currency back for the food that you sent. Pretty disastrous if you send like a full food shipment. Sometimes you might lose like half your thing to pirates, or even a worker might die or something like that as well. Later on there's things where like bosses will hold your ships for ransom and whatnot. Trying to understand resources in general, most of them serve two purposes. Upgrading the town itself, so that you can gain access to various features and improve those various features, and then shipping them places. The exception is kind of the thaumaturgic dust, which also works in the crafting. Now, the rewards you receive are based on a number of different factors, but the most important one to know early on is that the type of rewards you get back from your shipments after your ship sails out and then comes back, the type of rewards you receive is based on the resource that you send. Obviously, if you send a mixture, you will get a mixture of those rewards. But we've tested this by doing things like all just wheat, for example, and seeing what we get back, or all just orichalcum and seeing what we get back. And so far, here is what we have discovered. Crimson ore and crimson bars becomes armor. Orichalcum ore and orichalcum bars becomes weapons. Petrified amber ore and bars becomes jewelry. Bismuth and vericium, I don't know yet. They still need to be tested. Food in general seems to give currency, but I do still need to test and figure out what is the difference, if any, between the different foods. I assume there is maybe different flavors of currency you're returning depending on different types of food. Or it may be just that the food is for the request system. I'm not sure yet, so that still needs more testing. I assume something is kind of going to give like mapping currency or resources, so maybe a particular type of food will do that, or maybe one of these other bars or something. We'll see. And then finally, thaumaturgic dust is special. It doesn't actually have any value by itself, but it acts as a multiplier for the value for the rest of the shipment. So as you can see, if I send 1200 wheat somewhere, it's going to be 1400 shipment value. And then if I add some of this, it will simply multiply that by a ratio kind of based on the amount here. I don't know what the exact math on that is yet, but you can see it's 14k to 37k. If I do like 100, if I do like 100 wheat, it's 1500 shipment value. And then I can like approximately double that with about 80 to 100 thaumaturgic dust. But as you can see, if I send the thaumaturgic dust, it's worth nothing. So it's a way of boosting the shipment value. As far as we can tell so far, the shipment value seems to be tied to how much stuff you get back. Exactly the math on how that works and the nuances of that, still to be discovered. Now, once again, the thing to remember about ores and the bars are that they do the same thing, but the value is multiplied for the bars. So amber gives jewelry, and amber bars just gives more total jewelry. The numbers on this seems to vary. As like amber ore is worth 6 shipment value here for 1 ore, and then 1 amber bar seems to be worth 24 shipment value. But regardless, it seems to be worth converting that. And if you read the text up here, it actually says that bars count 5 times for port quotas. So it might be that like the shipment value versus the quota value are kind of separate numbers. But if, for example, you want to fulfill an order of crimson iron, you will need, that value of 270 divided by 5, it seems. So generally speaking, you're going to be shipping the bars where possible. And if you have a bunch of ore, you should be smelting that into bars for shipping. If there is any other nuance to like volume versus risk or something, it's going to have to be tested and figured out still. Now, the runes you get back do not seem to be tied to specific resources, but they are effectively a bonus to the shipment that comes back. And it seems to be that Kalguur ports give you the runes. As far as I can tell, the Karui ports, which you can kind of tell from the naming convention, like Ribbonfell versus Nakanu, the Karui ports shouldn't be able to give you the runes. And the reason for that is like the Karui interact with Rayclastian magic, which is skill gems. And the Kalguurans don't do that. They use runes. That's how they get their magic. So it makes sense that the Kalguur ports will give you the runes back. I don't know what the Karui do instead, or if they just do more value of other stuff. Pretty keen to figure that stuff out. There's also some possible scaling for the amount of runes you get back based on maybe the shipment value, the total shipment value. It could also be based on the distance of the port as well. So still a fair bit of stuff to figure out about the runes. Now the favored resource system is pretty important. You'll see as you mouse over each port, they each have different favored resources. And this does two main things. As you can see, there's like a plus 30% next to the corn. So the corn is worth 30% more if we send it to Ribbonfell than it would be otherwise. So if we sent the same volume of corn to Ribbonfell versus here, we would get 30% more currency back from it in theory. I don't know if the factors such as the distance of the port also play a role in how much you get back. So it might just kind of like compensate for that. But generally speaking, you're going to be getting a bonus or more value for that corn. The other thing is if you fulfill all of the favored resource request as it currently is, and you can do that over multiple shipments, you will get an extra bonus reward. That seems to be quite often something like a unique. I don't know yet if that's tied to the type of resources that are being requested. That's going to need a lot more testing. But so far, generally speaking, when I fulfill the full list, so when I send another shipment that finishes off that corn request, two things will happen. I will probably get like a unique item as a bonus, and the favored resources list for this port will refresh. That's how they refresh. So if you want to see different favored resources, you actually have to do it in order to make it refresh. I can't tell if they refresh like over time or something. That doesn't seem to be the case. I think they just refresh when you actually fulfill them, and that's what the explainer text suggests up there. So there's still a lot of nuance to figure out about like how the runes work, exactly what you get back for doing all of the fulfillments, the impact the type of and distance of port plays, and even some of what the later resources do. But the basics of it are this. If you want a simplified version, generally speaking, it seems that food will give you currency back. And if you want specifically things like armor or weapons, then you can pick the appropriate ore for those. Fulfilling the favored resource requests of each port will give you bonuses such as uniques. And sending bigger shipments will get you more total rewards more quickly, but will increase the risk that something goes wrong. And that can lose you some of your value from that shipment. More crew makes that risk threshold kind of lower, so you can send more stuff with a lower risk, or even sometimes more stuff without any risk. Same as like higher quality rank in addition to the number of crew. Strategically, I don't know yet and want to figure out whether sending multiple small low risk shipments has a place, or whether you want to be sending high risk shipments because there's some sort of like multiplicative value as the shipment value goes up, for example. Like I wonder if 4 shipments of 10,000 value will give you the same loot as 1 shipment of 40,000, right? If that's the case, where they're the same total return, then the risk you're taking is effectively offsetting the amount of time it sends to send those 4 shipments. So it might just be that it's effectively a high risk way to get more stuff faster, or the same amount of stuff faster, or whether you can play like a slow and steady approach. Still some kind of nuance to figure out to the risk reward factor there. Just finally, some random little tips. If you type /Kingsmarch in chat, it will automatically teleport you here to Kingsmarch, and you can, if using Awaken Trade, press Shift Space and open the options and go to chat, and you can set a macro here to type /Kingsmarch like this, and then set a hotkey to it. So I have Kingsmarch set to F2. That makes it really convenient to just press F2 and come to my Kingsmarch town whenever I want to collect my shipments or move my workers around. Another tip is if you're customizing your filter here on Filter Blade, you can go to the Customize menu, and under Current League, you can actually select Gold and change how that displays. Now, I would suggest strategically for gold that you don't worry too much about going out of your way for all the little small piles that drop. Just let yourself kind of passively pick it up. But if you want that little bit of extra dopamine, and if you want to see the bigger piles, then you can customize this to make sure that those are a little bit more obvious, so that you can, if you see like a large pile of gold, go slightly out of your way to pick it up. You can make things like the backgrounds transparent, which I've done, as well as the borders. And you could make just the text, or you could completely remove the text by making the text transparent and just making like a border, or maybe just an icon, if you like. You can add icons over here. You could just do like, say, a yellow background and make it really tiny so that there's just little yellow bars whenever there's gold. Whatever you like. I wanted to make them smaller and just make them text so that they weren't covering quite so much of the screen. And then I just put an icon and bigger text for like really big piles. We'll have to tune this as we see how big the piles are and how much they're being spammed and how much it matters to go out of your way for gold long term. Finally, you can invite Faustus and Johann into your hideout. Johann allows you to manage the town as well as get to Kingsmarch, but if you've set up that macro, you won't need to do that. The managed town part is kind of weird though. You can add treasury gold here, which is probably one of the main things you'll do. And you can kind of check on the status of your shipment by clicking this and then looking over here, and you can see it'll say all work complete in 30 minutes or something, so you can see how long till your shipment gets back. And you can also just see like your current status of your resources, of course. But you can't move workers around here for whatever reason. You have to actually go to Kingsmarch to do that. From Faustus, you can respec for gold, which is very cheap while leveling actually, as another little aside. Definitely use this instead of regrets. Access the currency exchange and access the black market. So he's pretty handy. In terms of what you actually have to go to Kingsmarch to do, the reasons you actually have to go there, if you want to do rune crafting, you have to go there for that. If you want to move workers around or collect shipments, you'll have to do that. Recombination, and actually upgrading the town as well. So whenever you want to come and do one of these and spend your gold on that, you'll have to come to town for. So upgrade the town, collect shipments, move workers around, do the more like physical kind of administrative aspects. Alrighty folks, this sort of learning is a community collaborative experience, and chat has been helping me a lot during my live stream, so feel free to pop by and become part of the creation of the knowledge and maybe the next more advanced guide. Or please, if you've learned anything, tell us about it in the comments below. I hope this has been helpful. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching. Enjoy your cozy league, folks.